From Anatolia, Lucius Domitius Calvinus sent the 35th and 37th legions to Caesar, and Caesar also received troops raised by Mithridates of Pergamon, whom he'd befriended. Mithridates of Pergamon was an illegitimate son of Mithridates of Pontus through his mother, a Galatian princess named Adobogina, who was one of his father's mistresses. Though he was a half-brother of King Pharnaces, whose intention was to reclaim the Pontic territory once held by their father, Mithridates of Pergamon sided with Rome. As their combined armies marched the coast, Caesar's 35th Legion alongside Mithridates' forces, they were joined by 3,000 soldiers called together by Judea's high priest, Hyrcanus II. Though Hyrcanus had been an ally of Pompeius Magnus, holding his position as high priest at the will of Pompeius, Hyrcanus wisely discerned that it was high time to support Caesar. Reaching the Egyptian town of Pelusium around the middle of January of the 47 BC year, Mithridates' army was also joined by an army of Syrian mercenaries financed by Cleopatra. There, the coalition of Roman, Judean, Syrian, and Pergamon forces defeated the forces of Ptolemy stationed at Pelusium, and took the town. In Alexandria, Caesar, beleaguered after warring in the city and at sea, besieged within the royal quarter alongside Cleopatra for approximately 5 months, finally received word that Mithridates of Pergamon was near, and that incoming supplies were on the way via ship. Immediately, Caesar ordered his fleet to escort and protect the shipment against an attack by the fleet of Ptolemy XIII, placing his Rhodian ally Euphranor in command, alongside one of his naval legates, Tiberius Claudius Nero. Tiberius Nero, who was the son of an eponymously named father and a Claudian mother, was a pure Claudian. Given the long-standing Claudian tradition of maintaining pure bloodlines by marrying Claudian cousins, Tiberius Nero may have been the maternal nephew of Publius Clodius Pulcher, whose 2 eldest sisters, Claudia Prima and Claudia Secunda, were married to men still unidentified by the historians. Additionally, Publius Clodius's personal relationship with Caesar may have been a contributing factor in Tiberius Nero's high placement within Caesar's military staff. Euphranor and Tiberius Nero engaged the Alexandrian fleet sent to intercept Caesar's incoming supplies. Though we do not know the specifics of that battle, Tiberius Nero was victorious against the Egyptians, though Euphranor was killed during the engagement. But the pair were successful in delivering the shipment of supplies to Alexandria's royal harbor. Ptolemy, notified of Mithridates of Pergamon's victory at Pelusium, dispatched a small force to intercept the oncoming army. Mithridates, commanding the 35th Legion, Judean soldiers, and Cleopatra's mercenaries, easily defeated Ptolemy's small band near the Nile River, and then set up camp, sending word of his location to Caesar in Alexandria. So that he would not find himself assaulted from the rear by the armies of Mithridates as his forces were busy laying siege to Caesar in Alexandria's royal quarter, Ptolemy ordered his forces out of Alexandria, leaving behind only a militia to maintain the siege. Loading his legions onto ships, Ptolemy sailed them down the Canopic branch of the Nile, towards the location of Mithridates of Pergamon. Caesar, who received Mithridates' dispatch, also made plans to journey to his new ally. Loading his legions onto his ships, and leaving a garrison to defend the royal quarter in Alexandria, Caesar sailed along the coast until he came to the Rosetta branch of the Nile River. However, the Egyptians, who were skilled at navigating the Nile's multiple connections, arrived near the camp of Mithridates before Caesar, and seized the camp that had belonged to Ptolemy's defeated forces. This camp, which was built on high ground, surrounded on 3 sides by the river, and linked to a nearby fortified village, was approximately 7 miles from the camp of Mithridates. In order to reach the camp of Mithridates, Caesar's legions disembarked and crossed the river. In an attempt to prevent Caesar from uniting with Mithridates, Ptolemy sent light infantry and cavalry to guard the river. Caesar, however, had already directed his own cavalry to cross the river further upstream, discreetly avoiding the water's edge. Cutting down trees, Caesar's army positioned the trunks across the river, fashioning makeshift bridges. When Ptolemy's forces attacked the Romans as they crossed the bridges, Caesar's cavalry fell on him, attacking from behind. Most of Ptolemy's light infantry and cavalry were killed, with only a few making it back to camp. Once Caesar consolidated his forces with those of Mithridates, he marched his entire army to the camp of Ptolemy, and then built his own camp at the base of the hill, tauntingly close to the Egyptians. Hoping to startle Ptolemy's army, and scare them off the hill, Caesar launched a two-pronged attack. Sending forces to the adjacent fortified town, Caesar's men overcame the garrison stationed within, pushing them back against the hill flanking Ptolemy's camp. At the same time, Caesar sounded the charge and the remainder of his forces raced up the hill towards the Egyptian army. Ptolemy's forces atop the hill, however, did not budge. Holding their ground, Caesar's men were forced to engage in an uphill attack. After a grueling clash, several of Caesar's units on the side of the hill were able to push around to the back of the hill, where they hoped to invade Ptolemy's camp from behind. But Ptolemy had his fleet stationed in the water behind his camp, and Caesar's men found themselves cowering beneath an onslaught of missiles launched from the Egyptian ships. As the battle wore on, Ptolemy's forces began slowly pushing Caesar's legions back down the hill. This created a gap, allowing some of Caesar's units on the side to push through. After storming the camp, these units then charged Ptolemy's forces from the rear, causing massive disruption and panic in the Egyptian line. As Caesar's men pressed this new advantage forward, Ptolemy's army fell apart. His men turned, fleeing to the safety of their awaiting fleet in the river. Just as Caesar's men had swarmed their ships following the battle for the Heptastadium, now it was the forces of Ptolemy who trampled one another, capsizing several ships in their desperation to escape Caesar's charging legions. Ptolemy XIII Philopator did not survive the Battle of the Nile River. Like many other Egyptians, the king was thrown into the river as his ship overturned. Weighted down by heavy armor, and dragged to the bottom of the Nile River, the 13-year-old boy king drowned. Unless the numbers were not favorable to his public image, Caesar, in his writings, usually gave a death count following his various battles. For the Battle of the Nile River, Caesar is silent on the number of lives lost. Leaving the forces of Mithridates at the site of the battle, Caesar, taking with him his Germanic and Gallic cavalry, rode hard for Alexandria. At the beginning of February of the 47 BC year, Caesar rode into town announcing both his victory over the Egyptian forces and the death of King Ptolemy XIII. The Alexandrian militia, still besieging Caesar's garrisoned troops, dropped their weapons and surrendered to Caesar, turning over Queen Arsinoe in the process. With the siege of Alexandria, which lasted from September 48 BC to the end of January 47 BC, finally at its end, and the civil dispute between Egypt's king and queen concluded, Caesar remained in Alexandria with the pregnant Cleopatra, where the two took a pleasure cruise down the Nile River on the royal barge. Despite giving the appearance of leisure time for Caesar and Cleopatra, this cruise served to make a political statement. With a ceremonial escort of Roman troops following behind in a convoy of smaller pleasure barges, Cleopatra, who was once again queen, was demonstrating to the Egyptian people that like her father, Ptolemy XII Auletes, she now ruled with the military support of Rome. On June 23 of 47 BC, after returning to the city of Alexandria, Egypt's queen Cleopatra gave birth to a baby boy. She named him Ptolemy XV Caesar Philopator Philomator, meaning father-loving and mother-loving. The former queen, Arsinoe IV, was placed on a ship and sent to Rome to wait with Vercingetorix, Vercassivellaunus, and the rest of Caesar's conquests for the dictator's long-delayed triumph. After accepting from Cleopatra a reduced payment of 10 million drachmae on her late father's 17 million drachmae debt, Caesar arranged for Cleopatra to marry her 11-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIV. Egypt's new king, having lived for 5 months in the custody of Caesar, understood his unique position within the political scheme of things. He was meant only to be a living statue of a king through whom Cleopatra could maintain the illusion of joint rule, at least until her infant son came of age.